There's a saying we have. First of all, you deny everything, you admit nothing, and then you make counter accusations, right?
A small cadre within our own government involved in the UAP topic has created a culture of suppression and intimidation that I've personally been victim to, along with many of my former colleagues. This includes unwarranted criminal investigations, harassment, and efforts to destroy one's credibility.
Him by saying he hasn't got an audience because he's got a massive audience, but he's like persona non grata for certain people in the UFO community, and he draws a lot of hatred these days from, you know, people like Matt Ford and these other commentators who are very aligned with Lou Elizondo, very aligned with these guys. And it just has, in my opinion, it has all the hallmarks of like a form of political strategy. The kind of blame your opposition for what you're doing.
There's a saying we have. First of all, you deny everything, you admit nothing, and then you make counter accusations, right?
In terms of gaslighting and doxing and the hate group and these things that have happened online. And a lot of people talk about this in terms of the harassment on places like X. And some don't take it very seriously. They just say this is insider bickering, like why is the UFO community always arguing with each other? But the truth is there is actually a concerted effort. And what's quite funny is recently there have been some pretty significant commentators who I'm not going to name just because I don't like the drama. And some of them are still technically on a friendly basis with me, even though we don't talk so much. But they're out there saying that it's the opposite, that there's this hate group that's trying to shut down Lou and trying to shut down these guys, and they're coordinated and they're attacking us. And actually what most people on X who are paying attention have seen over the years is this kind of metastasizing and collating of this group, this network that's very much aligned with these guys and has radical agendas in terms of how they deal with people that don't toe the line. I mean, even lightly. Sorry,
But now we have these former government officials who are mean and engaging in cyberbullying, and if you doubt them, they will marshal their armies and their sock puppet accounts to attack and take people down, and it's absolutely wrong. So it's created this environment where if you doubt these certain characters, it is more of a cult of personality than it is about the facts and the data. They will attack. So it creates this environment where we can't have civil discussion.
Every time they get on X, all they see are these weird conspiracies that, you know, Lou is working social media for some weird maniacal reason.
No, hold on. Let me ask your daughters. Come forward. Is your dad a maniacal guy and he's a wizard and he's magically messing with everybody about the truth?
He may be a wizard, but he's not a maniacal one.
Lou, as everybody has ever seen, if you've ever watched him, he's an incredibly positive person. He has good things to say about people. He does not talk badly about people. He is a positive human being. And I think he wants that unity, amongst all his peers as well as others. He wants to see cooperation, community, and a positive movement. So at least, my personal experience with Lou is he is that type of person. I think that's represented quite well on anything he's ever been on. I've not heard him say a negative word. He is just not that person.
This whole thing, this kind of Twitter drama that I think some people on I keep calling it Twitter, X, as far as like, the Lou Elizondo folks and then the Jay Stratton folks, people need to stop with that. Lou and Jay have done really great things for this country. They've done really great things to move this ball forward.
I also know that he and his family were apparently subject to a lot of intimidation and retribution and threats, which is completely unacceptable. Let me make this perfectly clear. At no time is it ever acceptable to threaten somebody. I don't care what side of the conversation you're on. I don't care what you believe in. I don't care how much you think the other side is damaging disclosure or the opposite. There is no time that is ever, in my opinion, is it appropriate to threaten someone or their family or to expose them or dox them or interfere with their privacy and their right to safety and security. That's unacceptable. Anybody who does that is not on team disclosure. We don't want you.
Have people on both sides, people who claim to be supporters of you, who, say pretty bad things and, they are attacking people and, doxing in some occasions. in your name, and the same comes from the other side, and I don't normally go into this kind of thing, but how does that make you feel?
I appreciate vigor and I appreciate people defending me. What I don't want people to do is attacking somebody else on my behalf. That is not acceptable. And I don't agree with that. If you want to defend somebody based upon facts and data, I support that. And that's on both sides, not just me. Even like I said, with Sean Kirkpatrick or anybody else who I may not necessarily agree with, I agree with having good, productive conversations but as long as we have decorum, right, within the field. Part of the problem with the UAP community, they're very passionate, and it's not a problem in itself. That's a virtue. The problem becomes when that passion gets translated into either.
There are a bunch of disinformation agents out there by the name of Tupacabra, by the name of Red Panda Koala, believe it or not, even by the name of LM.
When we have certain people on Twitter that kind of rage tweet towards certain senators, one particular male individual that tends to rage tweet towards Senator Gillibrand and others, I can tell you for a fact, Senate and House staffers read those tweets. They hear it. And in some cases, that stuff gets passed on to these senators.
I was offered a job in 2019 by the United States Space Force, where Lou Elizondo worked, to work with him in disinformation. And I said, not no, but hell no. I'll never do that again.
Did Lou bend the knee?
Worked for him. I don't know what he did. You'd have to ask Lou.
Okay.
But Doty has also, he said as recently as 2019, Hal Puthoff tried to recruit him for a disinformation campaign with ATIP.
Really? So Hal Puthoff has been a part of disinformation campaigns?
Allegedly forever.
I know for a fact, because people have said it, like big names in the field have said it, more than one person and more than once. I know that there are, like, in the signal chats of, like, the big names in ufology, that they literally pass around lists of, like, here's the podcast you should go on and the ones you shouldn't go on. And that there are people who are very invested in who, like, kind of laying down the rules for that, which I think is disgusting, personally. And I think it's a very weird situation, but I think that the people I know who are the most educated on these topics, who have the most questions to ask, they're not necessarily getting the interviews that they want to get. And, my star rose quickly, and I had some opportunities early on, and I will say that, like, I got very creeped out the closer I got to a lot of these people. I felt like as soon as I was sort of, like, given, like, the slightest foot inside the door, that there were a bunch of, like, really bizarre, like, loyalty tests and, like, weird favors being asked, and just like they want you to declare yourself, and they want to know that they can.
Some people think that you're deliberately misleading the public. Are you working on behalf of the government in a PSYOP program?
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. And I'll put myself on a polygraph tomorrow.
If you consider the outspokenness of Nash Patel and the FBI, who I know has sanctioned a secret FBI investigation, which is still ongoing, into the concerns of illegality and criminality involving the UAP issue. Watch out, gatekeepers. The FBI is on your tail.
It is illegal to run a deception campaign against the American people and Congress. Now, I've been in there with congressional members, with whistleblowers, secret meetings where I'm trying to get them heard. If this is a big deception campaign, then people are going to be going down for treason. And
she needs to explain whether she does endorse the claims made by the Wall Street Journal, because they are wrong. They are flat wrong. They are an obvious attempt to disinform and mislead the public. And that is a breach of an executive order, Executive Order 12333, that was established by the president.
Radical.
It's getting doxxed by the government.
That's being doxxed by the government.
shame on you. And you wonder why people are pissed.
I do think there's been like harassment of people, and I see it on like Twitter and other places, and like that fucks with me because I'm like, I want to like come out and defend.
I am aware of an ongoing secret FBI investigation, which is investigating not only the drones, but also some of the allegations behind the UAP retrieval program. Yes, if I was private aerospace or people in the intelligence community who are doing this illegal work, I would be very, very nervous. I would be thinking about my options right now. If I was, say, somebody in a senior level in private aerospace who was approached by Jake Barber and his team and told that they were thinking of taking this issue to the appropriate authorities, I would be looking at my options right now. I really would. Yes, the further answer to the question is I have been in touch with multiple people in the federal government, in investigative agencies, and also senators and Congress people and people who are in the senior levels of the Trump administration. There is ongoing communication right now. Yes, believe me, communication is happening. They are taking these issues very, very seriously. I'm going to leave it at that.
But the cyberbullying that these ex-intelligence officials have engaged in is completely unethical. Creating these sock puppet accounts and attacking people like they did with Lou, or they've done with Jeremy McGowan, who may be a little weird, but I believe his experience with Lou 1,000%. In fact, if you read his experience with Lou, you get a lot of insight into Lou's personality. Lou Elizondo. Now we've got two Lou's we're talking about. But Elizondo and those guys, that cyberbullying they participated in was completely wrong. And I've always expressed to them, cut it out. And they're like, yeah, we shouldn't be doing that. But they don't. They continue to do it. And it should be a concern for every American that we have these ex-officials out there doing that sort of thing to people that they just don't like.
To my knowledge, which I find this source very credible, and it was said to me only in person, and no one else was around, and this is what it was. That there is what I'm assuming is a counterterrorism or counter-intel operation going on that is attempting in the United States to wrap up all fringe and fringe and further extreme, as they call it, beliefs and activities, and to associate them all in such a way as to be able to call them enemies of the state, essentially. Okay, and then we fall under some type of homeland domestic terrorism provision that allows for this to happen. Okay, and
incredible long-standing Pentagon disinformation campaign.
Well, I think that's exactly right, and that's the other side of the story. But the base core.
You weren't fed some fake disinformation from somebody at the Pentagon. You saw what you saw.
Exactly, and there's thousands of instances of service members and regular people having similar experiences that can't be chalked up to simply disinformation coming from the Pentagon.
Okay.
But it does highlight a very important issue, I think, which is that if this is going on, this is basically a deception campaign against the American public, which I'm very confident that Congress is not read into.
All right, Rob.
No, Elizondo is a paid disinformation person. And
how convinced are you of that?
100%. I have an email from the top guy at the CIA who was there when Ronald Reagan wanted to know about this when he was running for governor, who was a very young postdoc, and he immediately wrote and said this is what he's doing. Now,
never even knew me. We're making accusations I was a disinformation agent. First of all, you don't even know what disinformation means. Okay. Secondly, I was counterintelligence, which is different than deception operations. That's just people in a vernacular trying to create a soup and saying, "Oh, well, he's one of those guys." Well, I'm not, and I wasn't. So, that's just ignorance by a lot of people. I don't speak ill of people.
One of the things I've noticed, by the way, is there are trolls who are building Twitter accounts trying to use the algorithms of social media to run the public opinion on social media to try and direct adverse comments about Jake. And we've been tracking it. In fact, we've been tracking it in quite a sophisticated way for the first time. And we're already aware that there are people who are almost certainly connected to the intelligence community who are involved in disinformation, active disinformation, to try and spread lies, basically, about these people and about these allegations before the public even hear them. It's fascinating to see a coordinated public campaign, and I believe it's being run from sections of the defence intelligence community. And if you remember, Tim, you'd know your law, Executive Order 12333, it forbids the running of intelligence operations against the American public by any intelligence agency in the United States. Twitter. There are people in the intelligence community who are running influence operations through social media, and they're trying to change public opinion. They're trying to drive skepticism.
All of this, to be honest, smacks of kind of like cultism. Would you agree or disagree with that?
Yeah, and I mean, look, in the UFO community, there is cultism. So, it's usually people that are all kinds of people in the UFO community right now that are, attracting certain information and certain following and weaponizing those people against their detractors. It's not going to be the only time we see this in history where people are creating sort of like
NASA put together a study panel, and that panel came back and said UAP are important, they're worth the effort to look into. They recommended that NASA look into it. Why isn't NASA looking into it? Because of the antics that we saw yesterday, and because of this hate that we're talking about. The panelists, the very start of their public presentation of their final results was to say, we were really disappointed because we got a lot of hateful, really bad stuff. Everybody on the panel got attacked on social media for looking at this and getting involved with it.
It's disheartening to note that several of them have been subjected to online abuse due to their decision to participate on this panel.
I really do want to double down on Dan's words, that it is really disheartening to hear of the harassment that our panelists have faced online, all because they're studying this topic.
My team and I have also been subject to lots of harassment, especially coming out of my last hearing.
What NASA was referring to in those statements were harassment and abuse coming from UFO Twitter in particular has been very loud and very angry with a couple of us, not just me. I know that I have...
Nobody wants to get involved with it now.
Podcast just recently where someone was accusing me of being a disinformation agent. I mean, dude, that's libel. That's slander. And people like that need to be careful because they may find themselves in some serious legal trouble, because you better prove it. If you call me a disinformation agent, you better prove it. You better show somewhere in my training where I was trained in denial and deception and to conduct propaganda against the American people. And if you can't, you better shut up. So these are some of my concerns with people just, having the ability to spew off anything that they want.
There are individuals who I will not name who I believe are getting paid, but every day they get out online and they're well known in this UAP community, and their number one job is to discredit these national authorities, these people like Lou Elizondo.
To combat alleged misinformation, the censorship industrial complex used counterterrorism and intelligence tactics developed abroad, including psychological operations, and repurposed them to shape domestic opinion and thought.
Left the Department of Defense, ironically enough, to finish the very mission they gave me in the first place. I didn't ask for it. I'm not a UFO guy. I'm not a ufologist. I never have been. I never will be. I'm a counterterrorism and counterespionage guy. I just do counterintelligence, counterinsurgencies. That's what I do. And it just so happens that in 2008, I was asked to apply those same skill sets into the UFO community.
In the age of disclosure, one of the things they go into is that if these programs have been running and if they have been back engineering crafts that are not of this world, there's a problem with lying to Congress, because misappropriation of funds, so anybody who did that is going to jail. So what they're calling for is mass amnesty. They're calling to say, hey, we've got to give amnesty to these people that were involved in this program.